Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner with Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern of Talent Teams Consulting.
And today we're here to talk CliftonStrengths talent theme of Futuristic. And we have two great new guests with us today. Bill Beachy, I'd love to introduce you to him. He has been training, coaching, and mentoring leaders for over 35 years as a results-oriented, talented, and proven leader. With his exceptional interpersonal skills, he is a compelling visionary and strategic planner. You'll hear his strategic and futuristic and ideation coming through very strong. I'm positive of it. He's highly skilled in helping people discover their sweet spot. I love that. As they grow and develop in their self-awareness, interpersonal relationships, vocational calling, and even in everyday life. He provides coaching and consultation to many leaders and organizations in areas of strength development, conflict management, employee engagement, leadership, high-performing team development, strategic planning, team accountability, and relational intelligence. He's done so in the United States, Great Britain, Slovenia, Nigeria, and China. And today he joins us on the Thoughtful Talent Show from his home in Lansing, Michigan. Welcome, Bill.
Oh, good. Hello. I started to say good morning. I guess it is, isn't it? So good to be with you. Thank you, Jen.
Yes.
Nice. And I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing, I think, an equally capable and wonderful human being, Ron Cheshire. Ron is a strengths-based leadership coach with also 25 plus years of senior business executive experience. He's certified by the ICF, Gallup, and with Ericsson International. He excels at fostering growth by harnessing individuals' unique strengths and inspiring lasting impacts on organizations. With a passion for coaching and co-development action, I think he's going to probably touch on that a little bit in this conversation. He does that facilitation. He also leaves a lasting impact on individuals and teams in organizations. Beyond his professional endeavors, he is a fervent, dedicated fan and participant in soccer and skiing. Ron brings his degrees from Concordia and Carleton University into his work and the educational foundation that has brought into his multifaceted career. So you'll probably hear a lot about his wonderful background as we go. We also just learned yesterday when we touched base with Ron that he's writing a book or is about to publish a book in the next year. Ron, do you want to tell us what the title of your book is before I tell people where you are?
Sure. The book is the title of the book, and I wrote it with three other people.
Oh, wonderful.
So two other professors and my partner at the co-leadership group. And the title of the book, or so far the title of the book before the publisher gets to it, is called Co-Development Action Learning for Business, Co-Create, Accelerate, and Grow.
Excellent. And with that book coming out, you'll see in his bio in the book, and as well as here on our show, he's coming to us from the Montreal, Quebec, Canada area. So another one of our international guests. We've had people so far from England and Ireland and Scotland, and now we get to add a Canadian. So thank you very much, Ron, for joining us today to talk about Futuristic.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Did I leave anything out, by the way, or did I get anything wrong in that wonderful bio of yours?
No, I think you covered all the grounds there.
Excellent.
Well, so as you heard, we have some major people here on our show today. And so we're really excited to dive right in and talk about the talent strength of Futuristic. Chad, could you share with us the short description from Gallup?
Sure. So Gallup defines this talent theme as follows. People exceptionally talented in the futuristic theme are inspired by the future and what could be. They energize others with their visions of the future.
Awesome. Okay, so before we hear from both of you, I'd like you to share with our guests and with us, our audience and us, where this falls for you in your top 5. Ron?
Number 4.
It's number 4. And Bill?
Number 5.
Fantastic.
Nice.
See, we got the experts here.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll just say I'm really thrilled that we're having these two on because it's my 20th. And Jen, I think you and I have
Chad,
had conversations
yeah.
about this. Where does this fall for you?
33.
Okay. So both of us are going to learn a lot. I hope our listeners take away as much as we're going to from this conversation. So so as we usually do with each of our episodes, I'd like to start off with kind of how this theme shows up. And I know, given that both of you are very accomplished coaches and are trained like Jen and I with both Gallup and Eat to Grow, we know that the talent themes don't work in silos. But for the benefit of our listeners, I'm wondering if maybe for this first question, if we could really focus in on just how this theme really shows up for you, how it comes out, maybe even some personal behaviors or ways you think about the world that are really driven specifically by this futuristic talent theme. And Ron, if I could come to you first, I'd love for you to take your first intro us to this theme.
Sure.
Tell us what it's about and how it shows up.
Sure. The theme futuristic is actually very significant for me personally and plays a crucial role in my life as a coach and a leader. For me, futuristic is about envisioning the future, providing clarity and purpose to situations. It's really fundamental aspect of my coaching in bringing teams forward.
Okay.
On a personal basis, it's my ability to look ahead, envision possibilities, and find the why behind actions and decisions. So it helps me create a compelling future. It gives me a sense of direction and motivation.
Nice.
My belief loves that it's your why.
Yeah.
So great.
And I was reflecting on the fact that the not so much the why we do things, but looking ahead. My deliberative does that for risk awareness, but you're already talking about sort of the why and giving yourself something to aim for. So love that first first start. Bill, what about you?
Well, Ron, are you in my head? The futuristic for me, professionally or personally, is I'm continually looking ahead. I'm have an adventuresome spirit, and so it just really works in well to be able to think about the tomorrows and dream about the tomorrows and believe that they're going to be finer than anything I could dream up on my own. It impacts activities, my leisure time, almost timing things out in my head, and with coachees, helping them begin to understand what the potential that they have that is out there in front of them, and helping them realize that and moving them toward that. Ron mentioned that futuristic is his why. For me, futuristic is my where. Where am I going? How do I get there? What's the pathway that I'm going to take on this journey that is stimulating and exciting and present every day?
Wow.
Bill, in some of our previous conversations around this futuristic, you've mentioned something around status quo and that not being something that is ideal for you. I'm wondering if you might highlight for our listeners
Sure.
what status quo means for you, and maybe where you put that in the grander scheme of things.
Yeah. For me, status quo has always been death. Maintaining what is just not an option for me, and always looking at how can this be better, how can it be more efficient, more effective, working towards excellence. I think that's my maximizer coming through continually. Ideation, ways to be able to maximize potential and getting it going. So status quo, it has gotten me in trouble. Not wanting to maintain status quo, particularly in organizations, because the 7 deadly words for many organizations is, but this is the way we've always done it before. And then to get people to change, everybody has ITC. immunity to change, and so they don't want to change. And so how do you paint a picture for them, a vision of what tomorrow could be that is better than what they are currently experiencing? So I just continually want to move forward to possibilities.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that idea of painting pictures for people. Both of you have touched on envisioning and be able to verbalize that. It's also interesting to hear you talk about moving forward or what possibilities could be, because we did an episode, I forget exactly how many episodes ago, but we did developer, and the same sort of intention came out of what could be, but it's interesting to hear it come from a different place. So thank you very much for highlighting that.
Well, and what I find really, really heartfelt in it is how you see the future for not just yourselves, but those you interact with every day. So,
Yeah.
And similar to that developer theme, like they can see what the other person could be or where they could go with it, and they're like wanting to get them there. And I heard that both in you, even both of you talking about like wanting to help others see what the future could bring, what else is out there. And Bill, in our individual workings together, it's one of the things that I've loved from you is just hearing your vision of the future, because like I just shared, it's very, very low for me. This is not something I tap into.
Yeah.
I'm a here and now kind of person. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
And that's perfect to be here and now. This is what we are. This is the be part of us, the being part of us. But shouldn't we always be becoming?
Yeah.
And that is
absolutely.
becoming more and unfolding more, because there's more of me internally that I continue to seek to discover.
Yeah.
So good. You just set me right up for where I wanted to go next. Chad, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I was just going to ask, I've loved everything Bill said. I wanted to actually go back to something sort of both of us said, but I want Ron's take on this. Of you talk about describing future, the future that you have sort of in your head, or that you are envisioning. Both of you have used that word, envisioning. I was just wondering if there's any sort of practical display of that. How do you find best that you can describe that future? Is it you need to show photos? Do you write a lot? Do you just speak about what the future could look like? I'm just wondering how it comes out. How would people start to engage with your futuristic, in your lived lives, whether it's at work or at home? I'm just wondering if there's some place where somebody would actually see that come out, and how that displays.
Good question. I would say that people see it in my actions, in the sense that I'm thinking about, okay, the year ahead. I'm thinking about, and we joked at one time when we that I have my summer vacation already planned for next summer. So that's the kind of thing that the people, and I'm always thinking 6 to 12 months ahead, maybe even out there. And I'm always bringing up ideas where I'm surveying the environment to see what are the trends that are coming up. So for me, it's through those actions, storytelling, always describing visually what I envision, visually what I see. I would think those are the other ways. I don't know, Bill, do you have other ideas that?
Well, I'm sitting here listening to you, Ron, and I'm going, gosh, is he in my head again? It's very, very similar. It's the action. Not being able to just maintain and sit right here. It's continually looking forward. It's not being satisfied, and you can get in trouble with that, because if you're not satisfied, you want to find meaning and purpose and peace. That's what we want. And so to be able to get into that lane of having a sense of contentment and purpose, I let my mind go. And I look to the future and go, what could be? What are the possibilities? Who do I need to connect with today? I mean, I don't know how many contacts I have on my phone, but occasionally I just go through them and just start calling people. Where are you? What's
Hmm.
going on? Networking, connecting with folks in some way to see what's out there
Yeah.
that informs me and stimulates my thinking.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I would add, it's interesting that you say that, Bill, about networking. For me, I will never refuse, or very seldom refuse a meeting. Someone comes in, and I've done that throughout my career because it's always looking ahead. I never
Hmm.
know if I'm going to be working with this person or collaborating. So that's another way of looking at from futuristic and networking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. I really love the concrete actions that people might be able to see, or at least understand sort of the intention behind them, or the where they're being driven from. So thank you. I know Jen wanted to bring us to our next question, so I don't want to take up too much more, but I was kind of curious about how this shows up.
I'm glad you asked,
Yeah.
because those were great insights into the like practicality, as you like to say. Like we like the practical, don't we, Chip?
Yeah.
So as we were, Bill kind of alluded to it, and I heard it in Ron a little bit as well. We are always looking forward. We are always trying to better ourselves, and so in that vein, we have times where our themes tend to go a little crazy on us. They either drive us a little farther than everybody else would like us to go, or we tend to maybe go on a little on the raw side. When we were first learning about our talents, we didn't know what mature and raw meant, and really what a mature talent looked like versus a raw talent. So I was hoping you could share with our listeners and our viewers maybe some of the ways that this talent might have maybe had some negative impacts on your life or gotten in your way. And Bill, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Sure. Excuse me. I can, case in point, there's an organization I'm working with currently. I did a 6-hour retreat kind of thing for one of their departments in January. And I'm thinking, okay, this could really be a great opportunity. It's a foundation, 100 employees, $4.2 billion endowment, and they give away millions of dollars every year. And I'm thinking already then, and I was with the grant making department, already then I was thinking about, oh, if I could get into the entire company and have 100 people go through what it is that I do, and then get them to catch the vision that every grant that they give to all these nonprofits require some leadership development with each one of them, and that's a mandate. And so what more could they get out of these grants and the grantees than to provide some leadership development training and teamwork sorts of things? And so I have all of this in my mind as I'm sitting there, going through 6 hours of workshop, and just thinking, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. The COO happened to be there, and they said, well, we want more of this. What could we do? And so I just had to really reel back in the vision that I had, because I didn't want to overwhelm them. And I said, the next step could be this. This is what this could look like, working specifically with this team. And so now I'm working with that team with an HPT, for those of you who are Eat to Grow coaches. And we just did T3, and I just met the president of the organization, and the person that's the team leader said, we want everybody in our organization to have the quote Beachy experience. I'm going, okay, all right. So she's capturing the vision, but it's just a slow process. So I have to be very patient and have that, self-leadership, that internal narrative that says, don't go too far, too fast. Just take your time, be patient. So that's what is, I could very easily go to the raw side and just go, oh, wow, we got to do this, and show them a timeline and all the stuff that we could do, and that would just overwhelm folks.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and you shared with me before, when we've been sharing about this, that sometimes if people get stuck in emotion, just talking about emotion or feelings, that sometimes this can put you in a place. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm action oriented and performance driven, in many ways. And so if I'm with a team, and maybe some folks are concerned that we're leaving somebody behind, or that there's not enough process, there's not enough order. Maybe there's a deliberative or discipline or responsibility person on the team that wants a little more detail, that needs more information, or the person that wants make certain that we don't leave someone behind. And all of that, gets in the way for me of moving forward. Those are conversations, but then I have to realize, no, they have to have this conversation in order to have ownership here. And so I need to step back, and it's a constant struggle. I have to constantly, I teach, I'm a professor, and so I have students, maybe 25 little thumbnail pictures on my screen, and I put a note up at the top right of my screen that says, ask how they're doing first. It doesn't come naturally to me. I have to start the class at 6 o'clock. I want to dive right in. Here's the content, blah, blah, blah. But I need to go, wait a minute, how's everybody doing since we met the last time?
Oh, Bill, that's wonderful. Can I just share with you, as a high executing, I regularly will answer the phone with whatever question I wanted to ask or whatever is happening. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. Hi. Like minutes later. Oh,
feel your pain.
Thanks for not making me, or thanks for making me feel like I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
Ron, how you've shared with me before some of the ways that this can get in your way. Can you share with us too?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I echo what Bill was saying about impatience. I have to sometimes slow it down, overlooking the present. When you have an ideal vision of the future, sometimes you're setting up unrealistic expectations. And so you have to manage those. With impatience, sometimes we miss kind of details and we go too quickly. So I would think some of those. What else? I think we talked about this, I think, on another conversation, but the idea of tradition, and it kind of relates back to status quo that Bill was talking. And I guess that's the question I'd ask you, Bill. How do you, with your futuristic, how do you feel about tradition?
Yeah, boy, that I've always struggled with it. I've always kind of pushed the envelope on tradition, particularly, this is a way that we've always done it. I remember I was in one organization and they said something about, well, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. And I said, well, just because I'm in Rome doesn't mean the Romans are doing it right. So let's take a look at it from a different perspective. And so, I want to have a level of openness. I want to honor tradition. I want to honor the context or the history of what has taken place. Context, by the way, is very low on my 34. So I'm not looking to the past a whole lot. For me, tradition oftentimes gets in the way, but I need to massage that in some way and try to be willing to be wrong about my perspective and go, okay, and if I need to win somebody over, to help them move in a direction, I could say, well, let's take these pieces of the tradition and let's couple them with this moving forward. What would that look like? And could we do that? And so in some ways I'm compromising. Ron, I loved what you said. We may have the ideal vision. Yeah, futuristic. Every vision we have is the ideal. It's right because we've thought it through. And I say to my wife, I said, "I'm sorry, I'm right so much of the time." And
I'm sure
anyway.
that goes over well.
Yeah,
it does. It's tongue in cheek. I assure you.
Yeah.
I assure you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ron, I want to go back to something you shared with me before about periods of uncertainty triggers something in you, and I'm wondering if you could reflect on that and share a little bit more on that, about how uncertainty seems to bring out a more intense version of futuristic. I don't want to go much further because I don't want to be putting your words in your mouth. So could you share a little bit more about that? What periods of uncertainty do for you?
Well, from my perspective, the periods of uncertainty, if I'm always looking towards the future, the periods of uncertainty in the present make it challenging to deal with those things in the present. So that's where I'm looking too far ahead, and these periods of uncertainty, and people come, okay, that's great to think about that in the next 5 years, but we're not there yet. So these periods of uncertainty bring uncomfort to the people around me that say you should deal with the present. So it's that tension between the present and the future for me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks for adding that on. I found that interesting when you shared that the last time.
So let's flip this on its head, because we always like to talk about like where it's gotten in the way. Now let's really dive into like where this futuristic talent, again, trying to stay mostly on the talent itself so that we can share with our listeners and viewers what this looks like when it is mature, it is rolling, or in flow, as Gallup likes to say. So Ron, for you, what does futuristic look like? Where has it been the biggest benefit for your life?
Well, it's helping people with a vision. When I work with teams, often teams, there aren't that many people that have futuristic as a theme. And I think in today's complex world and the speed of change in today's world, I think futuristic is probably one of the undervalued talents. But obviously, I'm biased in that view. But I think it helps people at least provide them with some hope a lot of the time in periods of change, that this too will pass and things will get better. It's definitely. I lead with the leadership domain of strategic thinking, so it's obviously helped me within strategic planning. It gives me a purpose. I have where Bill says it's aware. It kind of is that where it draws me forward. It helps me to inspire others, and then I think for me, it's in my decision making. The futuristic allows me to make those decisions, and I obviously later on we'll talk about how we combine it with the other talents. Yeah. But yeah, that's how I see, and how I see the talent or the theme of futuristic helping me.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Bill, how about you?
It's when I think about how it really comes to bear, you've probably heard the military term VUCA. We live in a VUCA world: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so people moving forward, they're going, what does my future look like? I don't know. I'm fearful of it. What can I do now to be able to better understand and navigate my future? And I think for leaders in the 21st century, now that we're well into it, self-awareness is vital. Know yourself. Dive into these. And so for futuristic, this isn't always, for me, everything is out there. We have to sit right here and understand what these 5 top themes mean for me and how I utilize them in a way. And it's a self-awareness, knowing myself, knowing where my sweet spot is, knowing how I can be in that place where there's fulfillment and purpose and meaning. And so if my futuristic comes into play in a very mature way, it's helping people understand that right now is going to help define what your future looks like.
Oh,
so good.
That's a really interesting tie, given what you were saying before about not being as I don't want to say comfortable, but your statements around the present, how sometimes that can be very frustrating. And here I love the almost, it's not a reversal, but it's looking at the present in a different way, being the basis, the launch point for all these futuristic driven visions of your future. So thank you so much for tying those two together, because I think
I like that. launch
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. But just the different perspectives on how the present interacts with the future that you're piecing together in your minds.
Right.
I think
So
it's
I
just
have to ask,
yeah.
are either of you ever surprised?
Well, I tell my family that the expression is that you should not be surprised about being surprised. So, but yes, but on the other hand, I don't like surprises, so that may tell you something about me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Bill,
Yeah,
what about you?
I'm not particularly fond of surprises either, because what that says to me is that, oh, I didn't look at that into the future. I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming. What did I miss? And so it's sort of a self-derisive thought,
Sure.
that I haven't. Oh, wow! Why didn't I catch that? Why didn't I see that?
Chad, can you identify with that statement as well? Because my deliberative is screaming right now.
Yeah. Well, actually, so it's interesting. Yes, my deliberative is in tune here, but what I actually just thought about is going back to say January, February of 2020,
Mm,
and thinking, okay, in 3 months, we now know that March 2020 was global pandemic that essentially nobody saw coming. And I almost wanted to bring that back, not that we want to
sure.
relive that whole experience, but what did that do to your futuristic? I mean, did that just like the vision I have in my head right now is that must have just wiped the board clean and you had to start over
Yeah.
again. But that's me making assumptions about your thought process. When something that drastic happens, and it doesn't have to be a global pandemic, but when something that drastic happens to an organization or something in your life, where does futuristic go?
Well, for me, it screams the word opportunity. So for me, it's a matter of, wow, okay, there's a new future, and so we embrace it. How do I pivot and how do I capture that all the potential of that future? I don't know, Bill. I see you nodding there.
He's nodding and laughing at all of us.
And nodding.
Yeah, yeah. I had in February 2020, I just signed a contract with an organization, and then to do a lot of face-to-face things, and then COVID just shut it down, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, it's a challenge, and I go, okay, how can I navigate this? How can I adapt to this? The opportunity is still going to be there, so I just need to re-engage my strategic thinking of how this is going to play out. And now that particular client, let's see, this fall I'm doing HPT 11 and 12 with that organization, and have done a couple of high performing leaders are going to do a GFL after the first of the year. So in some ways, the impatience had to be turned to patience, but to be impatient and then to be turn it to patience, I'm still active. I'm still thinking. I'm thinking of detours, adapting, pivoting, like Ron said, adjusting, making adjustment. But the goal is still out there. That doesn't change. I still want to move in a direction, like with that one particular company.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting to hear you both talk about pivoting, because it just comes from this different place. Like you said, the goal is still out there. You're just looking at, okay, what path do I take to get there now?
Yeah, it's kind of like your GPS. You run into a detour and it says recalibrating, recalculating,
rerouting. Yeah,
absolutely.
I guess I'd ask the question coming more from the statement, and I appreciate everything you've just shared because I think it adds so much more granularity to understanding this theme. I was just struck by your statement, Bill, of, oh, I didn't see that coming, and that could potentially be very frustrating. I don't think any of us saw a global pandemic coming, December 2019, the first part of 2020, and then all of a sudden it's here. And so I was just wondering, does that frustration build, or do you get down on yourself when you miss something that massive and so unexpected? And so again, I appreciate the response that you had, and it took us in a very different direction than where my brain was starting to make assumptions. So thank you for highlighting that. I do want to
Yeah.
move us on because both of you have touched on this in slightly different ways and alluded to that we're going to be talking about this. I even mentioned it in my very first question. We know that these themes don't operate in silos. I appreciate all the specifics that you've given about the talent theme itself. Moving to more of the theme dynamics where you see futuristic intersecting with your other themes. I'm wondering, I have sort of two questions. We'll approach each on its own. To start, I'm wondering if there are certain talent themes that you find you commonly pair your futuristic with that really essentially enhance your success, whether it's your success or maybe if it's the teams that you're working on. Are there themes that you go to on a regular basis to pair with your futuristic for that success? And I'm going to start with Ron with this one.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. So my futuristic, as I refer to it, as my to find my why, and I pair it with in my individualization, which is my number one, and that's my how. So it complements namely to identify, understand the unique needs and strengths of individuals, and then from coaching, I can tailor my coaching and things like that. I also use when I'm brainstorming or doing my strategic thinking, I use the trio of strategic, analytic, and futuristic. So, and those are two different cases where I'm pairing futuristic theme.
Wonderful, great examples, by the way. I love that, and I can get on board with your analytical because that's my number 5. So, yeah, I can see how that would be a really powerful trio. Bill, what about you? What pairings do you find you commonly go to enhance your success?
I would say, well, you can see my top 5 in the background. Probably futuristic and strategic are the ones that are utilized most initially. But if you think about it, and I'm frankly, when these came out and I did a little bit more research on them and came to understand them, I went, oh, okay, I really am different. I'm kind of an odd duck because I can see where I need to go. I can make the plan to get there. If I have a detour I have another idea about how to do it, I can activate it and I can maximize the potential, the possibilities of it all in one package. And so those really, it's almost hard to differentiate when one of those pops up, but I would say strategic and futuristic are the ones that lead, and then the maximizer, activator, and ideation support that. They're in service to getting to the where.
Nice, great combos. Cool. All right, so
before we move on, I wanted to touch on something that Bill's brought up a couple of times. And being that we are all Eat to Grow certified coaches, I thought it might just be good for our listeners and viewers to understand what these things are. So Eat to Grow is a group platform that we use as coaches to help us help teams. And you heard Bill talk about the HPT, that is high performing team. So we all have individually and sometimes collectively worked with teams and managers, companies to help team members grow and learn and collaborate with one another better, because it all comes down to communication is what we find out. So I just wanted to take a little plug there to just share what that was. So when you hear it, you know HPT is high performing team. Thanks. Yeah.
And the sessions he's talking about, like T3, T4, T11, are various team workshop instances within those programs. So thank you very much for slowing us down for a second there and making sure that we clarify everything. Thanks for the clarification. I want to move us back to talking about the themes a little bit and the way they play together. When you talked about themes that help you add to the success, I want to go back a little bit. We talked already about how these themes can get going in sort of a negative direction. They can, you talked about the impatience, the vision that nobody else seems to get, the not being happy with the status quo, and again, that impatience coming in. When your futuristic gets going kind of full tilt in one direction, and maybe it's not being super helpful, or it's sort of leading you down a rabbit hole, is there a particular theme that you lean on to sort of bring you back, or bring it a little bit more to its better application? If you need an example, I know when my analytical or my deliberative gets going, analysis paralysis, I lean on my responsibility to make sure that, okay, I only have a certain amount of time, so I can't go too far into the rabbit hole, or else I won't meet the deadline. I'm wondering if there's a similar experience you have with Futuristic. Is there a theme that you use to not so much rein in, which we've talked about? Reining in is we want to use our strengths the best, but which one do you use to moderate it maybe a little bit? And Bill, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Okay. Relator. It's my number 6. Case in point, yesterday, I'm rebranding. I mentioned that to you. So I'm working with a graphic design person on a new logo. And we've been through 2 or 3 iterations, and she does an excellent job. But yesterday, I saw where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But so I asked her what time it was and kind of thing, and she told me how to build a watch. Okay. I mean, not literally, but yeah, this is why I did this, and the research I've done on colors that are used, and I'm going, I really don't care about that. I really don't care in the least about your research on colors and everything. This is my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't say these things to her, and then I went, wait a minute. Be mindful of the other. This is important to her. Do not, this, you can sit still for a little bit and listen to her her opinion and her ideas, because this is important to her. And so the relator in me wanted to maintain a good relationship, and so that kept my impatience and my futuristic and my strategic and my maximizing wanting to, okay, we don't need 30 minutes to talk about what I know can be done in 5, because I've got other things to do. And so I'm really being vulnerable here. Those are things that go through my mind.
Yeah.
And I just want to keep in check that I go, okay, keep your mouth shut, Beachy. Just keep your mouth shut, and walk with it. Just be patient. Continue to walk with it.
Oh, thank you so much for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a confession, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Go ahead.
No. You started.
I was going to say, being high executing, I completely can sympathize with that, because I'm ready to just bulldoze people. And that was one thing I had to learn with all of these. And then adding this wonderful activator on top of it, if things don't happen in my time, I can just bulldoze right over and never mind, I'll do it myself, and on. And it's really important to understand where those lines are for us, and then how we are interacting with other people.
How do you hear yourself doing that, Jen? I mean, for me, I can kind of hear my language get a little short. I become a little more direct. Maybe there's not as much pathos in my voice. Those are kind of highlights for me.
What I've always said is my activator is my Incredible Hulk, and I have tells that typically happen, and that I know at once it is activated, there's very little slowing it down. So I have to be very, very cautious of that. And I'm sure your activator works very similar. We should have talked about this with activator too. One of my biggest ones is I start picking at the seams of my pants. So and it's usually in meetings is when this happens, right? Because I'm ready to move on and we're still talking about ideas. And I might, run my hands down the sides of my legs and I'm feeling the seams of my pants, and that's my tell. If I'm doing that, I'm ready to move on and no one else is. And I have to just, like you said, tap into that relator. Mine is 7. And so that's my first relationship building theme. And I immediately go to that going, okay, how can I keep this in check so that I don't ruin relationships for the case of getting work done. So
didn't mean to start interviewing you, Jen.
It's okay. I appreciate it, because it's great to see how, even though our talents are very different, we have some similarities, and where my why comes from my belief, your why comes from a different place. You're strategic, I think you said too. So it's just interesting how they all can look very similar, but we come from very different motivations.
And this
Yeah.
is the exact reason why I want to get Ron back in this conversation, because
Yeah.
I'm really curious about what theme brings his futuristic kind of back in check. Again, not a reining in, but just keeping it in its optimal place and avoiding that rabbit hole. So what theme or themes do you lean on, Ron?
So I have discipline. So discipline, but it works. It's a double-edged sword. So
Yeah, right.
because with futuristic, you still want to embrace flexibility, right? And but I do have developer, and so I have maximizer, which doesn't help. But so I would say that the strongest element that I use is I partner with others that have complementary strengths, such as for me, if I'm too far in the future, with an achiever or an activator. So in the contrary to Jen, I actually want to partner with people that have activation, so that I'm not, that brings me back to the present. So discipline, my own, is the strength that I use, or the talent that I use, or the theme that I use most often individually, but partnering with others that have complementary, like activator and even achiever.
That's
Bill,
fantastic.
I saw you laugh when he said maximizer doesn't help. share with us what you're thinking there.
Well, it just nothing is ever complete, almost. Yes, I can maximize it for this moment, but there are possibilities that increase the engagement, the effectiveness, the efficiency, the potential. Is potential limitless? And I believe that it is. That we never fully discover everything. And maybe I'm idealistic and looking through rose-colored glasses, but I just believe that every person has possibility to be able to engage with this gift that they have been given of themselves. They're the only one in the world that has been given who they are. And it's incumbent upon us to discover as much about me as I possibly can, so that I can engage with the world in a positive fashion, formatively, and for the good of others.
Awesome.
Ron,
Well,
thank you so much for bringing up that point about the maximizer, because hearing both of you talk about that, and in tongue in cheek, it doesn't help. We learned from our maximizer episode that we did just not that long ago, that they had a lot of those same feelings. So it's interesting to see it come out in both of you as well. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
So this next question, after that wonderful, like, I won't say heavy, but wow, what an intense intense observations. I want to bring this a little bit later. And this is also to help people that, yes, they've listened to the first part of this episode and started to understand some of the behaviors and the way that this is both positive and negative. But for those that might not have futuristic, or are still still sort of that elementary learning about their futuristic themes, Jen and I found that it's always helpful to provide some sort of image around some of these themes to help people kind of connect with it. So I'm curious, as you think about this theme, are there certain images, whether they're pop culture or household objects or something else that comes to mind, that really kind of exemplifies this theme? And Ron, I want to start with you and see if what image or reference you might point us at.
Well, the image I have is a futuristic cityscape, with visually stunning, high-tech city with skyscrapers and sleek architecture, advanced transportation systems, maybe flying cars and things like that. So it's that vision of the future for me, in kind of intertwined with urban planning. How about that?
Nice. I like it.
I see that picture. I see it. I love it, Ron. I did with this and that.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that you grabbed drawn to it, because what I immediately started thinking about is there's a scene at the end of Star Trek Into Darkness. It's the one with Benedict Cumberbatch. He plays the sort of the villain, the bad guy, Khan. And there's exactly that sort of scene. It's very sleek, it's very bright, it's very open. Yes, there's a fight scene going on, but all the advanced transportation systems that you were talking about all happening in that scene. So I don't know. I'm going to take that and just sort of add to it. That's a this and sort of situation. So thank you so much for that image, Ron.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Bill, what about you?
Well, mine isn't as majestic as Ron's is. It's really quite a simple piece. When my 40-year-old son was about 2 or 3 years old, we were at his grandparents, and they had a privacy fence, a 6'5" privacy fence around their yard, and we were just back there, and he found a hole in the fence, and I have a picture of him from the back that he has his hands on the fence and he's looking through the hole. As a matter of fact, that picture is under the glass top of my desk right now.
Oh, nice.
For me, that is the epitome of being filled with awe and wonder. You know, what is out there? What are the possibilities? What is beyond? What is next? And that sense of adventure and futuristic for me is capsulized in that wanting to see out there, wanting to look beyond from where I'm at. Not I'm grounded where I am, but I want to always see what's out there.
Amazing.
Nice. Yeah. Jen, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, after listening to Ron explain his, I immediately went to the Jetsons and how I love watching Jetsons episodes now. Like anytime I find them somewhere on cable somewhere, I'll stop and watch, because there's so many things we have now that they didn't have when the Jetsons were like actually the first time that was on TV. So I immediately thought of the Jetsons, not quite as sleek and cool as the Star Trek one. Yeah. The other one that it's very new pop culture reference. It's a Netflix series called Unstable, and it features Rob Lowe, and he is oh my goodness, visionary. And he kind of embodies futuristic for me. Like if I had to put it on someone and label them like they are futuristic, and he has a bit of a breakdown. It's major things going on in his life, but all of his company needs him and his futuristic and his ideation and seeing the way forward. And so just watching that show, I'm really sad now with the writers strike, because they haven't done the second season yet. But anyway, it's a cute one. So just thought I'd throw this pop culture reference out. Nice. What about you, Chad?
So it's interesting. All of you have gone to sort of futuristic visions. The Jetsons, Star Trek. We get looking through the fence. Going beyond. Even though this theme sits relatively low for me, one image that I think I was spurred to think about was an old captain's. I think they're called spyglasses. Like in the movie Master and Commander, you've got Russell Crowe and all his, a bunch of his lieutenants all looking out at the French ship way on the horizon. But I think it's that idea of the horizon and being able to look out. What are we going after? Where are we going? At one point, they're looking for what ends up being the Galapagos Islands. But that idea of trying to see out over the horizon, and this has come up plenty of times in our conversation already of seeing, just what's beyond what other people are perceiving. So,
or the quote that Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond.
Oh, there's another good one.
I love it.
I love it.
In infinity, well, that's endless, but to go beyond that, wow.
I like
I'm hearing futuristic and maximizer right there.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful examples to all of you. I think that will help some of our listeners and our viewers understand this theme a little bit better. Jen, do you want to take us to our last couple questions?
Yeah, so this next group, we really want to, as we think about how others can best interact with those who have futuristic in their top 5, I would like you both to share with us, and Ron, I'm going to come to you first. what advice might you give to a team leader or peer
Mm.
to help the person who has futuristic maybe come out of a raw application? Let's say they have this vision and they know where it's going, but they can't seem to pull back to help others see the vision. What's some advice that you might be able to give?
Well, I would say the first thing is that you want to acknowledge their visionary thinking. I don't think you want to diminish it in any form, because I think it's very, very valuable. But I'm biased, right? And celebrate those innovative ideas. But I think it's then, if you can support the person in connecting their vision to the team's goals, the organization's goals, the organization's values, and bring them and tie that in to where everybody else, and bring them back into what you're trying to do and set out as an objective. So yeah, acknowledge them, celebrate them, and bring them, connect them to the goals of the team or the organization. Encourage them to seek others' input as well into that. So encourage them to collaborate. And you know, I don't know if you've read the book by Adam Grant. It's the new, his latest anyway, is Think Again. And you know, futuristics, and we touched on it earlier, as Bill, I think, mentioned something about, you know, what if you're wrong? So to encourage that person to think, what if you're wrong? And if you've read Adam Grant's book, you kind of start to see that think again, and how else can you think again? So those would be my, in a short time frame, that would be my advice to people.
Ron, I'm gonna prompt you with one other thing you've brought up with me when we've talked about futuristic, which is I think you used the quick note of write versus say, and the power of writing. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, I think that if you actually write it down, and Bill, you can jump in, because I think you had something to say about this before. But if you write it down, it becomes more concrete. And I think that helps people to see that. And as we talked about that, I don't know, Bill, do you have anything else to add to that?
Maybe I'm just have my conversation, because I know I've had conversations with both of you about futuristic. So I apologize if I misassigned that to somebody. Bill,
okay.
Why don't we use this as an opportunity to go to
you? Well, I think Ron was right on target. I think that if we write it down, it helps objectify it. And again, everything that Ron had said, I would agree with, in terms of not wanting to squelch this innovative excitement that an individual has. But I would want to also say to them, what do we want for our team? We want things to move smoothly, to work well, to collaborate, good communication, et cetera, et cetera. So that means smooth sailing. Okay. So if you are out there ahead of the rest of the team in your speedboat, the rest of the team is going to be following in your wake, and it's going to be very bumpy. So remember that all of these innovative ideas that you had, if you scream out there ahead, it's going to create a wake, and it's not going to be as smooth for everybody. So just slow down, pull back on the throttle, and allow the rest of us to get in there with you, or you come back to where we are, so that we can go together, because we're better together than we are individually or separately.
I love that. I love that so much. And Ron, I want to come back to, you said, you know, you may be biased, but you want to acknowledge and support the person for their ideas and their futuristic thinking. I don't think that's biased at all, because that's what you need. You know, what you're telling me and our listeners is what those futuristics need, is to be encouraged about that. So on that vein, I want to kind of flip the question then to, if we're talking about interacting with those with futuristic, what is the best way to help them with their futuristic talents maybe contribute to the team? What are some ideas and things we could put out there to those team members who have futuristic, so that we can help them be their best? Ron, sorry.
Yeah, I think providing them with opportunities to use their futuristic, and helping them find the ideal situations. As an example, at the top of the conversation, we talk. I'm a facilitator of co-development action learning, and in a co-development action learning process, there's divergence of ideas at the beginning where we go through brainstorming and things like that. And then we move towards, as we go through the process, to convergence. So someone who is futuristic, they can shine in this situation where we need that divergence of ideas. We need to think outside of the box, and then perhaps show them how they need to dial it down when we get to the ideas where we need to prioritize and we need to converge the ideas. So I think that's one element. The other element I would say is to help them, give them an opportunity to collaborate on visionary projects. I think that's also, so to seek out opportunities for them to use that and to align with everybody else and align with the objectives of the organization. I think those are two concrete ways to do that.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Bill? How do we help this person so that they can best contribute to the team, get back in line with everyone else so that they're not creating that big lake?
I would want to encourage them to know as much about their futuristic theme as possible, to know where it flourishes, where it thrives, and where they are fully engaged with their futuristic. So once they're there, then they have an understanding of who they are. Then look at the rest of the team. Now, how does what I bring to the table integrate in with the rest of the team? And how can we move forward together? Because if a futuristic appears or perceives her or himself in a self-aggrandizing way, or better than, oh, I can see this, you can't, that's going to be very difficult for the team. And so for a maturity to encourage, this is what, this explosion of ideas, these visions that you see. However, not everybody's going to see that. And so how can you communicate with them in a real and reasonable way so that everybody moves together? And I think that in large part, maybe it's the leader that has a futuristic, so he or she needs to know themselves very, very well. Or if the leader has a team member with that futuristic, it's up to the team member or the team leader then to assist in helping to shape and form how that person performs within the team.
I have a clarification question. I'm noticing a thread of being able to offer a contribution to the team. Both of you have talked a lot about a lot of this work is done in your head. You know, that you're picturing things that maybe aren't out. Building on those two thoughts, I'm wondering if you could give, whether it's a leader or a peer, advice if they're partnering with somebody with futuristic. Have you found certain methods that are helpful in essentially extracting the vision so that it's not just in the futuristic person's head, it's then available to the rest of the team, that the vision in the head is now manifest? Is there a good way to pull that out? Or even if it's just for the two of you, what have you found of how do you best communicate that vision so that others might be able to help pull it out for those around them? And I don't know who to ask first. I'm just sort of putting it on the table, and whoever wants to pick up that question, go for it.
Well, I'm happy to. I say to those individuals, help me understand what that looks like for you. What does that look like for you? Can you paint a picture for me to try to draw it out of them? And so oftentimes futuristic, it's difficult to articulate. So helping them to articulate what it is, because we have it all in our head,
Right.
But to articulate it, and so just help me understand what that looks like. Tell me more. Talk to me. And basically it's coaching questions, trying to draw out of them what is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, to help them verbalize.
Yeah.
Verbalize it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just trying to figure out how you transition this stuff to something that the rest of the team can access. Until we figure out how to plug each other's brains into each other. That I was trying to figure out how you get this wonderful thinking that you're talking about through the futuristic theme. How do you get that kind of on the table?
Right.
So that the team...
I would start with help me understand what that looks like. And once, if they're able to verbalize that, then looking at the rest of the team, because there's going to be responsibility and activators. And okay, from a practical standpoint, what's our next step? Now what?
Okay.
Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could just plug into their futuristic brains
Yeah.
and like then they could just download all that information. Okay, now I got it. Now we can do our next steps.
Yeah. Oh,
It's-
there's your Jetson City. Now,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I know where I
There's
need to
it
go.
is. Yeah.
It would have
Now
to
I
be
got it.
decoded though. It's
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's essentially the core of my question is how do we decode?
Yeah.
How do we pull the native code out and then be able to have others make it open source? I guess maybe there's the tech reference. And so I was just trying to figure out how to do that. And my apologies if my question wasn't particularly clear, but I think your answer kind of hit the nail. So I appreciate that.
I would also add that you use participative approaches like appreciative inquiry, co-development action learning, World Cafe, ProAction Cafe, those types of approaches that you use in your team to co-create solutions. And that, one of the big things about these types of processes is you're learning from others. And once you can get a team, as you talked about HPT, once you get a team to go from performing to high performing, you start to get them to learn and be open to learn from each other. And I think that's one of the ways that you can do that, Chad.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that clarification. I was just trying to think about all the wonderful ideas people with Futuristic are coming up with and then how we access them. So thank you. This has been a fantastic hour. I've learned so much. As we wrap up, I would love for the two of you to maybe give our listeners and Jen and I'm not going to exclude myself because I've learned a lot through this. But if we were to take some of the key points, what would your one or two, maybe three things that you would really want people to know and understand about Futuristic in sort of I don't want to say soundbite way, but succinct, and maybe it's something that we've highlighted today. Maybe it's one other idea that you want to get out there. But I'd like, two or three ideas from each of you to sort of wrap up this show before we let you go back and keep coaching people. Ron, what would your highlights be for our listeners?
Sure. I would say people with Futuristic always balance the vision with practicality. So stay open to feedback, consider details. I would also say people with Futuristic to be flexible, foster adaptability as well, because things change and unexpectedly at times. But I would also end with the third point that use your Futuristic to inspire others, because people probably more than ever today need a purpose. And people with Futuristic are the ones that are able to help people with finding that purpose. So those would be the three items that I would suggest.
Awesome. Those are great summary points. I love it. Bill, what are yours? What people walk away with?
I have absolutely nothing to add to that brilliance. But tongue in cheek, but it's I think a futuristic person can create a sense of hope. And we know by our Gallup training that what people need from leaders is hope and compassion and stability and trust. And I believe that Futuristic can do that. I would also say, be willing to have a second thought, be willing to be wrong. And not as a defeat or as a failure, but from a sense of, oh, that's not right. Wow, I get to engage my Futuristic to discover a different pathway.
Very good.
And so to look at it from a positive standpoint, that the failure is simply a springboard. It's an opportunity to move forward. Or if you're doing something wrong or it's not what the team wants, oh, well, then I get to engage in other thinking processes and the thrill of that journey for Futuristic is, for me anyway, is the thrill of that journey is for everybody to have those aha moments, whether it's my idea or somebody else's. I don't care whose it is, just so that we can move forward together.
Nice.
Wonderful, beautiful wrap-up points. Thank you so much. With that said, I'm going to bring us in for the landing on this episode. I first want to be to say thank you. You've graciously given us an hour of your time to help us understand this theme a little better. As Jen and I highlighted at the beginning, this is not a really high theme for either one of us, not a really intense one. So I know I've learned a lot. I don't want to speak for Jen, but I get the impression from her smiles and the questions that she's gotten a lot out of this too. Would I be wrong?
Oh, no, absolutely. It's been so wonderful just to hear you talk about your Futuristic and what that looks like for you. And what I heard and am feeling is that hope, that like forward thinking, that you're not discouraged by changes that are happening. You expect them and you know that you can pivot. That was one of the big things I learned from listening to the two of you, is that like ability to pivot and really still see that future and that idea of where you're going. I've really loved that. The other two like keywords for me, I think, were like the launch pad and the springboard. I heard these a couple of different times in different places, and I think that puts it in a different perspective to me. It's this action oriented, like it is strategic thinking, it is in your head, it is stuff that you're envisioning, but that it's this forward momentum, this forward movement. And I've loved understanding this theme much better than the dreamer that I might have thought it was before. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode with these two wonderful humans, we encourage you to engage with all of our channels. We'll be putting this out on LinkedIn and our podcast and on YouTube. Leave us a comment, leave us a review. It always helps us provide better information and keep engaging with our guests in wonderful ways. Make sure you click the subscribe button. I know everybody says that, but it does help, and you'll keep getting future episodes delivered right to you. And just remember that we are on both Acast and YouTube. Jen and I put this mutually out on Acast, and then each of us have our own YouTube channels that you can find us on. So feel free to find us there. Jen, I know you want to say something about how to get in touch with all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to have in the show notes for this episode contact information for both Bill and Ron. So if you want to reach out to them and tap into their brains, into their futuristic and strategic brains to understand how the future could be different for you, you'll have their information. And then, as always, you can find Chad and I on there as well. Chad and me, I believe, is the right way to say that. So if you're looking to contact either one of us, our contact information is there as well.
Excellent. So to wrap up, until next time, I'm Chad Ahern from Talent Teams Consulting, encouraging you to keep playing to your strengths.
And I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching, encouraging you to be uniquely you.
Wonderful, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Always forward.